I couldn't get in to see my usual physio, so I've booked in with you. So this sounds innocent, doesn't it? But actually, this could be a problem. Already there's a negative connotation with this sentence and this kind of practice. And sometimes this happens. People will ring up me and go, getting in with you, I usually see a chiropractor or another physio or whatever. And therefore they're already kind of making it seem in their head like they're settling for you over their usual one who they've tried and trusted over the years. So there's obviously some negative preference in there, or there's not the same preference for you as there would be for them, and you're therefore the second choice. And this sounds, like I say, not too bad, because you can then turn them around and you've got an opportunity there. But obviously their preference is not for you, so already you've got an uphill battle against their preference. But how important is their preference, or how important are their expectations? Because they're already coming at this with a slightly negative tilt, not meeting their expectation or preferences by having to go with you as a second choice option. So there's been research done on this with regards to how effective treatment actually can be relatively, whether you meet a patient's preferences of treatment or you don't meet their preferences of treatment. And the research on this is fascinating, because I figured that what they found was going to be correct. They were going to find this out, but I didn't believe it was going to be so profoundly important in terms of the amount of difference it was. So what did they find? So this was an experimental study where they were looking at acute lower back pain, so back pain you've not had for very long, and they were looking basically to see what happened if you treated it based on their preferences of treatment or not. So they did this on pain-free individuals, which is already, you can already look at this and think, well, they didn't actually have back problems per se. So they were assigned to two groups. So they were assigned to a manual therapy joint-based type treatment group and a constant touch manual therapy group. And this was 48 hours after exercise that induced acute lower back pain. Yes, believe it or not, they actually made them get back pain. Prior to randomization, they questionnaire them about their expectations for pain relief and their preferences of treatment. Pain relief was assessed on the visual analog scale, and there were 60 participants in this study. One of 3 licensed healthcare professionals with specialized training were the people providing the treatment. This was 2 physical therapists and 1 chiropractor. All the providers followed a script so that there was no real variances in how they were talking and the way they were coming across. So what did they find when preferences were met? So what they found is if a person has their expectations met with the preferences of treatment that they actually wanted to begin with, then they found that the effectiveness of the actual treatment was 68 times more effective than if they had a treatment they weren't preferentially wanting. But what was also interesting is the joint-based actual treatments had a higher preference meet. So receiving the joint-based manual therapy actually increased the effectiveness by meeting that expectation by 29.7 times more. So what does this mean? It means patients' expectations and patients' preferences do matter, even if their treatments are not necessarily going to be the right choice. Does this mean we should just treat them based on their preferences alone? Well, no, I don't think it means that, but I think it means it has to be accounted for. And you could say, well, do we need to educate them to make sure that they understand what the right treatments are? Or are we needing to do a bit of that and a bit of meeting their preferences as well, as long as it's not interfering with the things that really work? Or do we go blindly into the unknown and just totally do stuff based on what they come in for? Someone could come in and say, I want this treatment. They don't know what's wrong with them, but you could meet that expectation and you'll be effective. However, you're still leaving some potential on the table. So I think somewhere in the middle is the right approach, where you are trying to educate them about the right approaches based on the evidence and the research and everything else effective-wise, as well as feathering in and putting in stuff that is probably already meeting their expectations and their preferences as well. I do this occasionally. Someone comes in and says, I've had ultrasound on me tennis elbow. It worked amazingly well. And I kind of think, well, okay. I'll do some ultrasound. It only takes a few minutes. We'll do some exercise-based stuff, and we'll do some other things as well, which are more proven in the research. But I don't tell them necessarily all of that stuff, because I don't want to blow out the water their their expectations on that ultrasound. If that ultrasound works well but has no harmful effect and it only takes a few minutes out of the session, then it's probably worth including. However, if you're doing something that takes ages out of the session for the detriment of things that work, then you've got to weigh that up, and it's probably a little bit more over the top to do that. So preferences matter. So obviously when someone books in with me and they want to see a different physio or whatever, then it's a harder battle, there's no doubt about it, and it takes more education and it takes more trying to rapport build with them and so on and so forth. But it's really interesting. I knew this was going to be an effect, but I didn't realize it was going to be this big of an effect, 68 times more effective treatment wise when it's meeting their preferences and expectations. So crazy. Anyway, that's it for this video, and I'll see you next time.